One thing you used to see are samples or partial completions of items. This is either a sample or it might be something that somebody made to kind of show somebody else how to do it. It could be that this was made by somebody just starting out, using maybe not the best materials, but sort of practicing. And this is an old one. You can see it's got the yellow feathers. I'm not sure what that is, canary or oriole or maybe a finch or something. Some darker feathers, and again, I don't know what those feathers are. This is deer white here, and it's flanked by these two, so it actually sets off against the two, and you can see it really well. This is a red-headed woodpecker scalp, an acorn woodpecker that's been tied on there, and then some white feathers, and I don't know what kind of feathers they are, and then some more dark feathers. And so basically you've got all the different things. You've got deer white, feathers, and scalps, all the different things that you would use to make one of these. And this, in fact, has an old iris twine, a very small iris string on it, and you might be able to see the rawhide here, which has been twisted for strength. One of the things we tried to do is make durability a big part of our feathers, and we got to thinking, well, how can we do that? And I'd heard about people using wire before, but it always made the feathers turn out stiff. And so I found this piano wire down at the hardware store, and it's 15 thousandths of an inch thick, which is pretty thin, 0.015 inches. And you can see it's got real good flexibility there. So that's what we use in the core, and then we wrap that with this waxed string. This waxed string comes from the bead store, and I'm not sure the size of it, but we'll be looking at this again a little bit later when we actually make a core. And this, of course, is the completed core after it's been wrapped. And you can see how flexible that is. I want to show the difference between that and one that, this is the 15 thousandths of an inch thick, and this is 20 thousandths of an inch thick. And you can kind of see the one has a lot more action to it than the other. And so depending on what that material in the middle is, can really affect what the action at the end of it turns out to be. Here we've got that same example where the one on this one is has the core at the 15 thousandths of an inch piano wire, and this one is the 20. And you can see there's a big difference in terms of the action. And action is an important part of these. So this is, with that core, very durable, but it also has good action to it. You're going to need a stick, and people use all different kind of materials. The stick basically is going to be here at the end and come up to about here on the feather. But just about any material I think will work. Huckleberry I've seen, ironwood. Just I'm not sure that the stick makes a lot of difference as long as it's got the strength to hold the feathers is the main thing. In terms of what we wrap, you're going to need some fluff like this for down at this area here. As you finish it off and tie your 3 pieces onto the stick, then you cover it up with some fluff like that, and then tie that off there, and that gives it just a little bit more action to it. This is, I think this here is marabou is what they call it, and I think I got that at the fly tying shop. But other kinds of fluff, goose down, if you have access to the Eagle program or something, you can get fluff from those. This is a acorn woodpecker scalp, and this puts a nice red color on the feathers. This is deer white, which sets off the other colors. Basically, it separates the other colors I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is a tanned deer hide with the white on it. And the white, of course, comes from the belly of the deer and the inside of the legs. So this is a fairly thick hide. The old feathers used the same deer white, but they didn't have the tanned hides. They may have been brained, but they weren't tanned and softened. And so the thinness or the thickness of the skin was a lot less, and they didn't bulk out around the feather. This one is also, looks like it's been brained, but it wasn't tanned. And so this would be thinner, the skin here would be thinner than on a tanned piece. As far as the what we used to wrap it, this is a waxed thread that I get at the fly tying shop. I don't know the thickness or anything of it, but they have a whole variety of different fly tying threads that you can get. And I just use a fairly small one so that it doesn't create any bulk. They have some too like this where the color is similar to sinew, and people used to use sinew or iris on these, and so this provides a nice traditional kind of color for the wrapping, and it's easy to cover. I think in the day they probably used sturgeon glue to glue the feather onto the stick or onto the core, or just basically just tack it down while you wrap it with the thread. I use Pliobond. It's good glue, and it doesn't harden or it doesn't become brittle, so it allows these feathers to flex even after the glue's dried. And then finally, the part here where you're finishing it off, I use fly head cement, and this is just a glue that for this last part here to hold that thread in place as you're finishing it up. As far as the feathers are concerned, you can use any feathers that'll work. These are some that I got off the internet that were available. There's some, the fly tying shop would have some, of course, and then there's the natural feathers that, like on this old piece here, these are all natural materials that came from this area. And so that would be preferable, is to use these things that came from here when you're making something like that. But sometimes people do use commercial feathers. The only thing I would mention is that these are great feathers for tying flies, but they're not very good for these kind of feathers. They don't wrap right. We want them to lay flat, and when you're tying a fly, you want them to stick up like that. And so that's kind of the difference. So these are not very good for making these. Here's another one. This is just a flicker feather, but it's got a real heavy core here, and it doesn't wrap very well. So when you're selecting feathers, it's important to get ones that are going to be able to wrap around these small cores in a way that that they lay down nicely, like these do here, or these other ones on these feathers here. So as far as materials, that's about it. Like I say, I'd use the natural materials from this area to the maximum extent that you can. The deer white, of course, is from this area. The woodpeckers are also native to this area, and the fluff. So whatever you can bring in that's local, I think it's important to do that to keep into the spirit of these kind of feathers.